The biggest, most important thing we've learned is that adoption requires top-down enablement and enforcement. So you want to get your sales executives engaged. You want to...
Their job to explain to the customer why their document's not in good order. It does encourage them to meet their customers not do ink signatures because they don't want to have a deal not go through close one.
How many LinkedIn sellers do you have locally?
Like salespeople?
Quota-carrying
Salespeople. Across all 5 lines of business, about 4,700.
Okay, so what was the rollout like? What was the duration?
Yeah, so in 2009, we had 200 sales reps. There was about 15 marketing solutions.
Get them talking to their managers, their AEs, about why they need to use DocuSign. And it really needs to be, to say a condition of employment sounds harsh, but it needs to be, it does need to be the standard. You know, executives need to be looking at these numbers, looking at which reps are using DocuSign more, which reps are not, and really driving home the point that not using DocuSign increases sales cycles and increases the risk of losing a big deal.
All right. Welcome, everybody, to Sales Organization Best Practices. My name is Matt Ketchum. I'm Director of Marketing here at DocuSign. We've got some great stuff for you today on Sales Best Practices. The fact of the matter is that DocuSign helps organization close sales deals faster, period, full stop. Today, we've got 2 organizations who are going to come in to tell you guys about their DocuSign journey and what they're doing with DocuSign in sales to help their teams do more business and do business faster. So we've got Elizabeth from LinkedIn, as well as Brian from Salesforce to talk you through the journeys that their organizations have been on, and then a couple tips and tricks for folks who are looking to do similar implementations themselves. So first, I'd like to introduce Brian Driver from Salesforce. Brian is the product manager for e-commerce systems at Salesforce. He's been in enterprise software for 17 years, about that, working in a variety of sales, ops, IT positions, focusing on sales methodology, business process optimization, and agile delivery. So with that, I will hand it over to Brian.
Thanks, Matt. So yes, I am the product owner for e-commerce systems. Technically, we call it self-service commerce systems because it includes both DocuSign, which is part of our quoting flow, as well as what we call checkout, which is our e-commerce portal. And we own a few other pieces of that process peripherally related to it. Here's how long I've been in tech. My first job was selling Norton 2K, if anybody remembers that, prior to Y2K. So that was my very first tech job with Symantec. So I was with Symantec as a sales rep for about 6 years and in sales ops for 6 years. So I've got a familiarity with sales process. And for the last 3 years, I've been with Salesforce managing the self-service commerce systems. First things first, if you've ever been to Dreamforce, this is our safe harbor statement. You know it, you love it. You can look it up on our website. Basically, it means that buy Salesforce for the awesome product, not for anything we're going to talk about today in terms of process. And this is all going to be internal process. Although I'm a product owner, I'm in IT. So I build internal tools and process. I don't actually manage any products we sell to customers, but we're more than happy to talk to you about how to implement the things that we're doing today. So before I dive into these numbers, actually, I just should give you a picture of what we use DocuSign for at Salesforce. We use it for sales process, but we also use it for HR. We use it for offer letters. Something like 90% of our offer letters are accepted through DocuSign. We use it for comp plan acceptance in sales. I think 99% of our comp plans are accepted through DocuSign. We use it in real estate. We use it in procurement. We use it in a lot of different areas. So what we're going to be talking about today is really more specifically what we've done in the last year or so to enhance our use of DocuSign, to continue to streamline our processes using DocuSign. So that's what we'll be talking about today. So DocuSign by the numbers. These are specific to DocuSign usage for quotes. So these are our adoption metrics right now. And Americas, we have about 60 some odd percent. APAC and EMEA, a little over 40. LACA and Japan are our biggest issues, our biggest problem areas. And a lot of that is due to, in LACA, issues with Brazil and data residency. And in Japan, a lot of it is the cultural challenges of trying to get e-signature adoption when there's a physical process that's very much embedded in doing business in Japan. So that's something we're definitely investigating options for fixing it. By the way, if anybody in the audience has had success in Japan or Brazil, I would love to talk to you after the session. So yeah, we highlight the issues we have with adoption. And deal size, you can see here the deal size kind of flips the other way. We're doing larger deals through print than through DocuSign. Now that's not necessarily because they need to be done that way. I think a lot of it is just cultural. If you look at this is really interesting. This is a report based on what I consider normalized revenue. So for opportunities between 50 and 250K, we wind up with deals that are closing way quicker on average using DocuSign than through print. These deals are all relatively the same size. The average deal size in every region except for Japan is around 100K for print and around 100K for DocuSign. So they're apples and apples roughly. But DocuSign deals are closing well over 100 days quicker on average. Now, is that because it takes 100 days to chase down the signature? No, it's because most likely there's either cultural issues or issues by segment or even by sales rep where reps just aren't taking advantage of all the opportunities available to them that sales automation tools and process give them. So this just highlights the issues we've had. This will be available on the slide deck. Now, one of the things we've done recently to increase our adoption of DocuSign and really streamline the customer process is we've implemented a process in our e-commerce system that allows for us to combine the collection of credit card data with the DocuSign signature process. Today, you can publish a quote through DocuSign and a customer can log into checkout, which we also own, and accept that quote in DocuSign. The old state was that if the customer had a credit card quote, they needed to provide credit card information, they had to actually call somebody, give them the credit card number the old-fashioned way. They would enter that information into our CyberSource form internally, so we have a fully PCI compliant solution, but it's not necessarily compliant in the spirit of people at the end of the quarter. It increases the cost of sale if you don't use DocuSign. So we need to more fully utilize DocuSign's regional capabilities. They've made some enhancements in Brazil that we've got to take advantage of. So that's one of the next big things we're going to do. And then DocuSign will help shorten sales cycles. Maybe not 100 days, but it's going to help shorten sales cycles by days, even by hours can be really critical at the end of the quarter. And we need to explore innovative PCI because somebody's got to transact that phone number that credit card number over the phone. So what we've done is combined our CyberSource processes whereby
Rollout was a lot easier. We now, when we build any new sales process, because we're very verticalized in our sales and only strategic people can sell across.
Entering the credit card information on a new business quote. And then once they enter that information, CyberSource returns a token that we write down to the quote, then the customer proceeds to sign with DocuSign. And actually, I'll go back to this because what this has done for us is it's really reduced the risk of PCI issues, an AE writing a credit card number on a Post-it note, for instance. It's probably happened before. And it's also giving us, I think, lower risk in terms of the fact that if you don't publish through DocuSign and you publish a quote just through the normal e-commerce process, the agreement process is just a click-through agreement. It's a checkbox and a button. We don't actually write anything down. We don't gain a signature from that. And it's less defensible if there's a dispute of that contract in court. So DocuSign gives us something that's more defensible. It lowers our risk. It raises our compliance posture. So overall, I think this is going to be a very good solution when it goes live in about maybe a month and a half. So this is something we recently built for the ExactTarget integration. ExactTarget, if you're not familiar with them, they're a marketing cloud company. They do email marketing automation. And a lot of their products are very service-driven. And so they, something like 40% of their new business quotes go out with services quotes, go out with a statement of work or an SOW. So their old process was that the quote and the statement of work had to be manually combined, manually sent out, a lot of paperwork, a lot of latency and a lot of lag. So what we did was created a very straightforward process whereby the AE can attach the SOW or statement of work to the quote, and then that becomes available in our quote publishing process. Once that's selected, we send the SOW to DocuSign, we embed it in the QLV. When the customer signs it, we get the entire document back, and that's the source of truth, essentially. So we preserve that. We don't have to shuffle paper around. There's a lot less risk, and we do it all through DocuSign. And we return all of that back into our Salesforce org, and it's all written down in our DocuSign integration. So those are the two things that we've worked on recently. And again, what we've gotten from those pieces of work is we've really driven down our risk, but we've driven up our compliance and driven up productivity significantly. So where do we go next, and what do we learn? So our roadmap, complete self-service e-commerce through DocuSign. So a customer who goes to our checkout portal right now to accept a new business quote to activate a trial, they have the click-through process that I touched on earlier. We want to go through DocuSign for everything. So we have a signed document. We have something that is a lot more defensible than just a click-through quote. And it's a smoother customer experience for customers that might transact both new business and add-on quotes, or might transact from one company to another. When they leave one company and have one experience, then they come to another company and have a different experience. So it's a much smoother customer experience overall. Make DocuSign the default quote delivery tool. So this is something we want to do for all quotes, so that when an AE publishes a quote, the only option is DocuSign. They can't print to PDF. They can't send the customer a fax or an email, which is going to generate paper on the back end. And it's, again, streamlining the customer experience and making everything just more consolidated. And then, as I touched on earlier, we need to investigate what specific functionality or enablement efforts we need to execute on to boost adoption in Japan or LACA. So what have we learned? The biggest, most important thing we've learned is that adoption requires top-down enablement and enforcement. So you want to get your sales executives engaged. You want to get them talking to their managers, their AEs, about why they need to use DocuSign. And it really needs to be, to say a condition of employment sounds harsh, but it needs to be, it does need to be the standard. You know, executives need to be looking at these numbers, looking at which reps are using DocuSign more, which reps are not, and really driving home the point that not using DocuSign increases sales cycles and increases the risk of losing a big deal.
The entire scope of the portfolio. Every process that we start, there's 3 core pieces that you will get. You get our standard opportunity process, you get our standard signature process, and you get our standard renewal process. So even when a new business line spins up, like Elevate did, we basically gave them this, prepackaged, here's an opportunity signature and renewal process. Now what do you want?
So we need to more fully utilize DocuSign's regional capabilities. They've made some enhancements in Brazil that we've got to take advantage of. So that's one of the next big things we're going to do. And then DocuSign will help shorten sales cycles. Maybe not 100 days, but it's going to help shorten sales cycles by days, even by hours can be really critical at the end of the quarter. And we need to explore innovative integrations similar to what we've done with the credit card form. We need to look at things we're doing outside of DocuSign today and how we can combine those into an experience for the customer that is going to make them walk away and feel that this has been, a seamless experience. That we.
A Salesforce user. So
Right.
how did you, I guess, get them into that process? Because we're looking at doing a similar thing, and the first objection is always, well, we don't use those tools.
Right.
So it's now about how do you, well, we're trying to look at how to connect to their workflow where they're at. So.
Out-of-the-box functionality is super powerful.
That we aren't putting them through some sort of jarring transition between one system and another, which right now we kind of have between the different systems and the different processes we have that are customer facing. So that being said, I think I whipped through that. Any questions anybody has? Yes, sir.
The integration with the credit card processing, is
Yeah.
that all done internally because you guys have bazillions of programmers?
The integration itself was done internally, but we use CyberSource for our payment authorization. So it's a CyberSource API. It doesn't even transact our systems, but we actually coded the interface and coded the API integrations. And actually, you know what? Should we wait for questions at the end? Okay, go ahead.
So talking about the SOW and quote
Yes.
merging, so is the quote obviously generated from within Salesforce application?
Yes.
SOW, what was the origin of that? Is that also generated in Salesforce, or is that another application and you had to merge the 2 documents on its way to DocuSign?
Currently, those are manually generated. Our plans, and this is not something our team's working on, But our plans are to utilize our Aptus integration to automate the creation of statements of work.
So when you can, and because those signers don't even need accounts on DocuSign, you actually just make them a signing function in some of those processes. So for example, personnel action forms from within Salesforce, a manager would fill out
Transition between one system and another, which right now we kind of have between the different systems and the different processes we have that are customer facing. So that being said, I think I whipped through that. Any questions anybody has? Yes, sir.
The integration with the credit card processing,
Yeah.
is that all done internally because you guys have bazillions of programmers?
The integration itself was done internally, but we use CyberSource for our payment authorization. So it's a CyberSource API. It doesn't even transact our systems, but we actually coded the interface and coded the API integrations. And actually, you know what? Should we wait for questions at the end? Okay, go ahead.
So talking about the SOW and quote
Yes.
merging, so is the quote obviously generated from within Salesforce application?
Yes.
SOW, what was the origin of that? Is that also generated in Salesforce, or is that another application when you had to merge the two documents on its way to DocuSign?
Currently, those are manually generated. Our plans, and this is not something our team's working on, but our plans are to utilize our Aptus integration to automate the creation of statements of work.
all the stuff they wanted to change about the rep. It would go and populate this form, and it would kick off the workflow. And we had a manage address or a manage recipients process within it. And we made sure that the entire workflow was blown out based on the type of change the manager wanted to do. It would then hit someone as a signer in HR and a signer in finance, and all they had to do was click through the email. So they started to touch it and see it go faster. And what they really liked is they didn't have a stack of personnel action forms on their desk to sign anymore, that they had to find inter-office mail, which actually has never existed in LinkedIn, so to get it back to someone. So it just kind of created that desire to continue to use it. If you want more examples, I can tell you, but power forms are a super easy way to have no one need a license to everything or anything. Cool.
Work through like special terms and things like that. So we use Aptus for our quoting as well as for our agreements. So that's another area where we can explore how to utilize these two different vendors' processes and tools to create a more seamless experience.
And if I could follow on.
Sure.
So I saw the PDF look like it was an attachment to the opportunity.
Yes.
In your screenshot. So basically you're taking that attachment, taking the generated quote with Salesforce, merging them, and then sending it through the DocuSign, putting it in the DocuSign envelope.
That's correct. And the document we get back from DocuSign once it's signed is the entire document with the SOW as an addendum. So it's not two attachments, it's one single one. That was quite a bit of custom API work that we did, so anybody who'd like to know how we did it, I can introduce you to our devs. Yes, ma'am.
First, I have to say I loved your quote about DocuSign being a condition of employment because I'm trying to get my salespeople to use DocuSign for Salesforce all the time. So with that said, do you have any additional insight as to how you actually drove additional adoption for having them use that system?
That's the challenge we're facing right now. We currently give AEs the option to print to PDF without any conditions whatsoever. We have no threat.
Elizabeth and Brian, I'm actually going to ask you to come back up here for just a couple more questions because we do have a little bit more time, and then we can wrap it up. So the first one I'm going to have for Brian, you mentioned a couple of things that you're working on. I'd love for you to talk through how you guys think about what that next use case is going to be and how you landed on, for example, the e-commerce piece as the thing to go and track down for the organization as, next on that prioritization list.
Sure. So the e-commerce thing really came about because we have the same team managing e-commerce and DocuSign. The business hadn't even asked for it. Once we started talking with the business about the risks we were facing going through the click-through process, the non-DocuSign process, which does allow for capture of credit card, versus going through DocuSign, which did not, and we explained to them, if we put a little bit of effort in here, I think it took like 4 sprints, we can actually mitigate all of that risk and give AEs even more reason to publish through DocuSign since they don't have to touch the credit card. And it made total sense. Light bulbs went off. So a lot of this, the interesting thing about Salesforce is we have an IT group that works a lot like sales ops, like I'm used to working when I was in thresholds around that or anything. So our revenue ops VP, who's probably our biggest sponsor in the executive suite, her name's Meredith Schmidt. She has mandated that we switch over to DocuSign for everything. And if for some reason a customer has a compelling need to print to PDF, they utilize DocuSign's capabilities and just deal with the watermark. We have some corner cases where we might have competitors of DocuSign or business partners. We do business with them, even though we love DocuSign, that might not want that watermark. And frankly, we have mechanisms, and workarounds for that. So that's the plan going forward. In the next 6 months, we want to eliminate all PDF publishing altogether. Great. All right. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Brian. Next up, I've got Elizabeth Guerra. Usually I write down a couple of notes to introduce speakers on a note card to read out, but I couldn't do Elizabeth justice without reading what she actually put on her conference bio. Elizabeth believes in fitness of systems, mind, body, and technology all inclusive. As an early adopter of tools that
Sales ops. So, we're ideating a lot, even without business cases. And then we bring those to the business and propose, hey, maybe we make this change, and if it sells, you do it, and if it doesn't, you go back to the drawing board. So a lot of these changes to DocuSign have come about as a result of discussions between IT and the back office business folks, and not necessarily sales. As I mentioned, Meredith Schmidt, she's our revenue operations VP, so she handles all of the finance commerce systems on the back end, but she's been one of the biggest sources of enhancements and requests for our DocuSign backlog in the whole company. And she's completely separated from the frontline sales process.
Thank you. And Elizabeth, along similar lines, you listed an impressive list of use cases that you guys have gone through and implemented. I'd be interested to know how you guys chose each of those to go and work on. I understand you've got folks knocking on your door to say, we want this, but you've got limited resources to go and deploy. How do you decide what's the next thing to go and tackle?
As a project manager through and through, we asked.
Enhanced productivity. Elizabeth is considered a DocuSign hipster. She liked it before it was cool. She's implemented enterprise software programs at LinkedIn, including contract lifecycle management, CPQ, and DocuSign for every department and business unit. Adoption, governance, and creative solutions are her cup of tea. Much like Vanilla Ice, if you've got a problem, she'll solve it. She can be found, of course, on LinkedIn. Elizabeth?
Hi. Let's see if I can make this thing go forward. All right. So I am the manager of sales systems. Hi. Let's see if I can make this thing go forward. All right. So I am the manager of sales systems process at LinkedIn for the sales productivity and operations team. It's a mouthful, but essentially what we do is we make salespeople more productive and successful. Process at LinkedIn for the sales productivity and operations team. It's a mouthful, but essentially what we do is we make salespeople more productive and successful. We have a federated IT model, so our systems groups roll up underneath function, so I literally work for salespeople. We have a federated IT model, so our systems groups roll up underneath function, so I literally work for salespeople. Them first what their measures of success are. And we want to understand the use case. So what's your business problem? What's the business case? What are the measures of success going to be? And my favorite question, when do you want to go live? Which is always yesterday. So when we look through those and we kind of stack rank them, we look at impact. And when we first started, we actually looked at impact based on who else it would touch who wasn't already touching DocuSign. So someone who may have an impact that was, oh, we're going to save 3 minutes per customer success. It's rough, I'm not going to lie. So a little bit about LinkedIn. So for those of you who don't know what LinkedIn is, we are the world's largest professional network, adding approximately 2 members per second. In fact, some of you might have just added it to your iPhones, and it's rough, I'm not going to lie. So a little bit about LinkedIn. So for those of you who don't know what LinkedIn is, we are the world's largest professional network, adding approximately 2 members per second. In fact, some of you might have just added it to your iPhones, and if yes, rep, well, those were going to touch members, which is valuable, exceptionally valuable. But in that scenario, we may have actually stack ranked higher something that was going to say, I'm going to have 6 internal signers, because it created that drive to use the tool. And that's when we were then able to say, you know, okay, now we'll do everything. But we really focus on a very CSA-like model where we built a governance and an internal training site where if someone asks and say, hey, I want to use this use case, you need your first connection. You can find me at the back. That's the wrong direction. There we go. Our mission, you need your first connection. You can find me at the back. That's the wrong direction. There we go. Our mission is to create economic opportunity for every professional in the world. And we do that by hitting 90% of Fortune 100 companies as customers. We have over 7 million company pages where companies brand and manage themselves through our platform, as well as over 400 million members. We also have this super powerful revenue generation engine, basically punctuated with 3 core verticals, which are hiring, marketing, and selling. And recently we've added Linda and Elevate to those. Elevate was homegrown, and Linda has been acquired. So in Talent Solution is to create economic opportunity for every professional in the world. And we do that by hitting 90% of Fortune 100 companies as customers. We have over 7 million company pages where companies brand and manage themselves through our platform, as well as over 400 million members. We also have this super powerful revenue generation engine, basically punctuated with 3 core verticals, which are hiring, marketing, and selling. And recently we've added Linda and Elevate to those. Elevate was homegrown, and Linda has been acquired. So in Talent Solution, we look through the use case. We put it into our development org, so into the demo org. We show them how it's going to work. And then we actually tell them, we're disrupting the talent acquisition industry. We have all of these different teams that actually operate entirely separately. And that's kind of why I'm going to go into these. We're disrupting the talent acquisition industry. We have all of these different teams that actually operate entirely separately. And that's kind of why I'm going to go into these. Go into the demo org, play around with it, learn it, go see this training site. Once you're fully ready, we'll do 1 test and we'll dump it into production. So I've gotten out of the business of building new use cases, and the only time I get exceptionally involved is when it turns into a potential integration use case.
All right, thank you. To kind of wrap things up with you guys, I'd love for you to give, if you had one.
The Talent Solutions team provides things from our recruiter tool to job slots and mobilizing that super powerful thing that is the internal referral. Our marketers love us. We have been touted to have the most affluent and educated thing that is the internal referral. Our marketers love us. We have been touted to have the most affluent and educated.
One thought to leave the assembled group with in terms of how they should be thinking about their DocuSign journey and what they should be doing next, what would it be? And I'll start with you, Elizabeth.
I would have to say, as far as sales goes, they're a river, right? Like, you give them the path of least resistance, they will flow right down it. So if you literally punctuate the end of a contract generation process, whatever your process may be. We use Drawloop, we use XAuthor, we use for all these different things, right? We have all sorts of different audience space in the world, and it's not just because it's a whole bunch of white collar professionals, but because our members also have massive amounts of influence within their industry, as well as audience space in the world. And it's not just because it's a whole bunch of white collar professionals, but because our members also have massive amounts of influence within their industry, as well as their organization. So you can target someone in their organization. So you can target someone in a region with a certain seniority and a certain role and give them your crafted message, and that's exceptionally powerful. We also have our sales solutions business, which is taking the vision of turning the cold call with message, and that's exceptionally powerful. We also have our sales solutions business, which is taking the vision of turning the cold call, which I'm sure all of your salespeople hate, into a warm introduction through the power of their network by being able to share value and really understand who they're connected to. It's probably connected to someone who can help them get that sale. And as I mentioned, we have just recently acquired Linda, so we're elevating professionals, or all of your salespeople hate, into a warm introduction through the power of their network by being able to share value and really understand who they're connected to. It's probably connected to someone who can help them get that sale. And as I mentioned, we have just recently acquired Linda, so we're elevating professionals' knowledge base and also allowing employers to give amazing content to their employees to help elevate their talent pool within. And we have our newest, most nascent business, which is Elevate. It's an employee activation tool, which enables companies to provide curated content to how you could make it. But right once it's made, it says, would you like to send by DocuSign? That button's there. Download takes 5 clicks. Send by DocuSign takes 1. So just make it easy, and the river will follow.
I would echo Elizabeth's comments. The challenge we've had is that DocuSign came in quite late, in our maturity, in our corporate history, and what you've spoken to about the more strategic AEs being a bit more reluctant. We've run into a lot of that friction and resistance. So the suggestion I would have, as I touched on earlier, executive sponsorship and engagement frequently, often, aggressively, is really, really important to any tools adoption or processes adoption, but most importantly with DocuSign, because it's such as a former sales rep, that signature, it's a visceral thing for an AE. When they get that signature, they don't want anything, they don't want to mess around with that. They want to be able to
help encourage employees to find their voice, but still speak to the company narrative. Okay, so in 2009, when I started, help encourage employees to find their voice, but still speak to the company narrative. Okay, so in 2009, when I started,
do what they are familiar with. They want to be able to get that signature in a way in which they're familiar. So if we're asking them to change, we're going to need somebody to tell them.
At LinkedIn, we actually had 2 of those. We had talent and media. We had exceptionally disparate business processes and exceptionally ridiculous tools that we were using. So we needed to change that and get them all into a process by which they were closing deals at a rate that made sense, and there was less noise coming from approximately the 200 sales reps that we had. So I'm going to tell you a little bit of a story, and some of you may watch CBS's Scorpion. Anyone? Raise of hands. All right. So Scorpion is a team of geniuses, and there was less noise coming from approximately the 200 sales reps that we had. So I'm going to tell you a little bit of a story, and some of you may watch CBS's Scorpion. Anyone? Raise of hands. All right. So Scorpion is a team of geniuses with massive IQ that solve some really intense problems. Well, what you might not know is Walter O'Brien, real guy.
From the top, and we're going to need to have a very aggressive enablement program, which we're going to have to do when we standardize on DocuSign across the board. So yeah, that's the key, I think, when you try to get your sales group to adopt DocuSign across the board.
All right, thank you guys. One more round of applause.
Okay. He actually is a certified genius, and he has a team called Scorpion Computer Systems. But he also has a forward-facing. He actually is a certified genius, and he has a team called Scorpion Computer Systems. But he also has a forward-facing or public-facing group called Concierge Up. What do? They solve any funded need. With the support of geniuses with massive IQ and project managers who index higher on EQ than IQ, he has super nannies manage geniuses to translate business process to the real world. So DocuSign happens to be my genius. I happen to be linked to a more public-facing group called Concierge Up. What do? They solve any funded need. With the support of geniuses with massive IQ and project managers who index higher on EQ than IQ, he has super nannies manage geniuses to translate business process to the real world. So, DocuSign happens to be my genius. I happen to be linked to...
So thank you guys for coming out for the session. One last thing that I'm going to ask you to do, if you've got the mobile app on your phones, go and fill out your ratings for this session. We want to know what we're doing, what we can do to do better, what we did do well that you'd want us to go and repeat. So we do read those. We do want your feedback. My boss is going to read those. I want a good review. In terms of the rest of the day, back in the auditorium with the main stage, we've got the Chief Digital Officer from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation talking about taking DocuSign to create a digital revolution across the nonprofit space. Some really great stuff there. And then we'll wrap up for the day. So thanks much and hope you enjoy the rest of your momentum.